I'd like to extend on behalf of the Socialist Equality Party both our condolences and our sincere welcome to the family of Ronald Adams. Greatly appreciate the comments and the courage of Shamenia in speaking here today. This cannot be an easy experience for you and your family. You've suffered an irreparable loss. There's no way that reality can be diminished. But also, I hope it has become clear in the course of this discussion that your experience is not an isolated one. All over the world, working people can identify with the experience through which you have passed. The reality is, we can be certain on the basis of statistics that even as we have been meeting here, during the past 2 hours, hundreds, if not thousands, of workers all over the world have suffered injuries. Many have been killed. And we know that this will not be ended by expressions of condolences. And we know that those who claim to have responsibility for the fate of workers, particularly union organizations, will do nothing to stop this. One of my first experiences when I had become active in the socialist movement, some 52 years ago, I went to Ohio to cover the struggles of the working class in major industries. That was a period of enormous rank-and-file militancy. And while I was in Lorain, Ohio, which was a center of steel manufacturing, I came across a very small notice in the local newspaper about the death of a young worker by the name of Rick Herzig in National Tube in Lorain. And I remember this because meeting his family, which was going through that trauma, it was an experience which we would read about or come into contact with many times in the future. It was, by the way, I should point out, an event very similar to the death of Ronald Adams, except that Rick was a very inexperienced worker. Ronald was a very experienced. A massive piece of equipment hit this young worker and killed him instantly. He was just 20 years old. He left behind a 1-year-old child, a young widow, and a devastated family. Now here we are, 53 years later, and the same things are happening every single day. We live in the midst of the greatest scientific revolution in history, a staggering development of technology, and yet the most elementary precautions are not taken to protect the lives of workers. And as has already been said, the most dangerous thing that a worker can do every single day is go to work. And no family can be sure that by the end of the day they won't suddenly receive devastating news of something terrible has happened in the factory or in the workplace. And so far, we've only been speaking of industrial accidents. We haven't been talking about the daily poisoning that takes place inside factories, in workplaces, in neighborhoods. We haven't addressed the issue of global warming, the destruction of the environment. Now, the term accident is often used, but is that word adequate? Mustn't we see, if we're going to change things, mustn't we begin to understand the cause of what are called accidents and begin to recognize that within these accidents, we're actually seeing the operation of a law. If you walk across your room and you trip, that might be an accident. But when we are experiencing events that occur with staggering regularity, day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, second after second. These are no longer mere accidents in the conventional sense of the word. We're seeing the operation of necessity. This is the product of the way, the system within which we live. Not just in this country, but in every part of the world. Our social life, our economic life is organized in a way which produces, as I said, continuously these disasters. And they will continue unless a way is found of putting an end to the system which produces these catastrophes. And what is the system? What is the social organization? We could spend a great deal of time talking about this, but I'll try to state it very simply. We live in a capitalist system. The essence of the capitalist system, where does all this wealth come from? Where are all the trillions which we read about and billions in the pockets of a handful of people? Where does that wealth come from? It comes from the transformation of the labor of human beings. What is called labor power. What capitalists buy from workers in the form of wages. The whole operation of the system depends in transforming human labor into profit, into what Marx called surplus value. Every capitalist is only interested in one thing when he employs a worker. How much wealth can that worker contribute to his own fortune? Machines don't make any money. They have to be set into motion. And it is the labor of workers which set those machines into motion or add in one form or another value to the productive process that makes this entire system operate. So from the standpoint of the capitalist class, everything depends upon the transformation of labor into surplus value and profit. And in order to achieve that, every measure will be taken to guarantee the highest level of what must be known as exploitation. Now, when we're speaking now of answering and responding to this social crime, since we understand that it is the system itself which produces it, and it is operating in the interests of another class who own the corporations, who derive value and profit from the labor of workers, we have to build a movement among the working class, first of all, for workers to be conscious of this and to take action, to transfer power to the workers on the shop floor, in the workplaces, to begin a movement on an international scale that will transfer power to the working class and take control of the organization of society in the interests of the broad masses of the working people, of the population. Let's be blunt. We're living in a world where every day we read of unspeakable horrors. Industrial deaths, the poisoning of the environment, the implementation of genocide, the killing of entire populations, as we now see in Palestine, the spending of billions and trillions in preparation for war. That's the system we're working under. That's the system which leads to untold disasters, tragedies, deaths, and injuries every day on the workplace, and of course, the very possibility of the destruction of the planet through war, through environmental catastrophe. If this is to be changed, it requires the intervention of the working class, the fight for the building of a mass social political movement. This meeting has been organized by the Socialist Equality Party and the International Workers Alliance of Rank and File committees. It could be organized, and this fight will continue because it is informed by a perspective. We are not looking to another class to solve this problem. It cannot solve it, even if they wanted to. The operation of their economic system determines their actions. And so the message which we want to put forward today is that it is critical that we take this fight into the factories, into the workplaces, that we build the IWA-RFC as a powerful instrument of working class struggle within the United States and internationally, and that we connect this fight to a political struggle to change the very nature of the political and social system under which we live. You cannot combine capitalism with the interests of the working class. If any of these social problems are to be changed, it will require the building of a socialist movement. That is the truth. There's no escaping that. And socialism means fundamentally the transfer of power to the working class and the reorganization of society on the basis of the interests of broad masses of people. So look at Shamenia, I see your family. Let's make sure that the world in which you grow up is a world in which such horrors never take place. And when you speak, as when you grow older, you speak about what happened to your grandfather and your father, you will say that's what it was like in the old days, before the working class came forward, understood what was going on, and changed the world and made it a world worth living in. That's what we're seeking to do. And so we call, join our movement, help build this. Thank you very much.